Hello. Continuing my watch, there's been a few small developments. I haven't sat at a bench that much this week, but I managed to get down to the assay office with the buckle and also a little pendant that I made for a friend. And I'm registered now for an assay mark. They give you the option of punch or laser. Punch and laser or laser. I just took the option for laser, but I'm not entirely sure whether that's going to be any good. An old-fashioned punch might be better in some respects. Obviously you want a nice deep hallmark which doesn't polish out, and they can do two kinds of hallmark with the laser. They can do one where it actually sits on the surface, and one where it recesses the background in order that it's a bit more resistant to polishing. Problem is with the stamp that sometimes they deform your product. When they put the hallmark on, it squashes the front. That problem doesn't exist with laser, but I'm not sure whether it's going to be any good or not. The registration cost me about 70 quid, and then I was expecting the hallmarks to be fairly cheap, but when you send in a one-off piece, it's not cheap, especially when they're returning it by post as well. So it's not dropped the buckle in. Having the buckle marked is good enough. I don't think I need the main case marked, because marking the buckle at least shows when it was made, by whom it was made, and where it was made, and I think that's just nice to have. Here I'm cleaning up the inside slightly. When I solder the top on, I want the insides to be very snug, and at the moment they're probably slightly too snug. I think if I solder the top on, the insides probably won't fit currently. It might be close though. Maybe they would go in. Most parts of it are pretty much the same height. Obviously when I solder the top on, I'm going to have to clean the solder joint on the inside of the case, make sure there's no lumps, and hopefully the insides will slide into the case and the spring bars will still line up with their holes. Here I'm just cleaning up the lugs slightly. This still requires a lot of cleaning up, with wet and dry and then polishing, but I'm just tinkering with it slowly. I also saw the watchmaker today, my watchmaker. I just stood on his doorstep, had a 10-minute conversation with him, showed him what I was doing. He said that he thinks I'm on the right track, and that the hole in the centre of the dial was too small, needed to be bigger. So I've enlarged that hole now. I showed him that I've got a clean movement and a dirty movement, and I'm not going to touch the clean movement. I'm going to give him the watch to fit the movement when it's complete, because he needs to cement the glass in for me. So if he's already got the watch, might as well let him put the movement in for me, just because there's less risk of it getting damaged if he does it than if I do it. Here I've just got a bit of sandpaper which I've rolled around the spindle, and I'm using that to clean up the inside of that circle slightly. The glass wasn't fitting flat either, slightly too big for the hole maybe, wouldn't go in there and sit right, so I'm cleaning up the inside of the bezel as best I can. I've tried a few different techniques for that. Side in first, it's the opposite side which isn't sitting flat, which is telling me that it's not just a lump of metal sticking up, it's an actual size issue. But this little rubber wheel is quite good because they wear out quite easily, these rubber wheels. So as I'm doing this, it's cut away the rubber where the yellow gold sticks out, and the rubber wheel still hits the white gold bit, and it still doesn't line up properly. It's still sticking out slightly on one side. It's barely detectable that the glass isn't flat, but it isn't. I do eventually get this to sit perfectly, and it's quite tight, but it will end up sitting nicely. Benefit to this is also that it's cleaning up the inside, polishing it up a bit, so that's good. Obviously this piece is going to be soldered on top of the case, and then I'm going to polish it all up before I give it to the watchmaker. Once it's soldered onto the glass from the bezel, once it's pushed in, and it's also going to be a concern whether the case gets crushed pushing the glass in, but I'm pretty sure that the case is going to be quite strong enough, and that there I think is the glass in perfectly. Running my nail around just to see if there's anything sticking up. So that's going to go on the top there. That's got a slight bit of play in it, which is irritating me. Thought since I had this attachment on the drill, I would just clean up the inside of the dial. The thickness of the dial is another concern. I've thinned it down even more. It's probably between 2.5 to 3 millimeters thick now, this dial, and I did attempt to put the hands on the movement. They seem to fit on there okay, so I think it is just about thin enough. Obviously too thick, the hands are going to be in contact with the dial, which is no good. And as the dial gets thinner, the bezel which sits on top of the dial gets lower within the case. It's only fractions, but obviously I don't want that bezel to vibrate around within the case, so it would be nice if I knew that it was good before I soldered the case together. Anyway, that's about it for today. Just showing you here the little lugs which stick out the back, which secure it together. This is called a cup phrase. It just can shave wires backwards. So I'm just taking any extra length off those to make sure it sits flat, just giving them a touch. I don't think they're going to touch anything anyway. Maybe indentations in the back, and this little pusher, I'm just giving them a push so they grip that nicely. It's a bit like how you would set a stone. So that's all stuck together nicely now. Larger hole at the centre, fairly clean. This isn't going to need soldering again, and thanks for watching.